What's up you guys, thank you for joining me again. Now in today's video we are going to be working on the final subtopic of chapter 2, which is quadratic functions. First of all, I want to apologize because I wrote the title wrongly. It's supposed to be quadratic functions, not quadratic equations. Okay, so that's what we are going to be working on for this video. So without further ado, let us get started. So the first thing we're going to learn for this subtopic is the effect of changes of the value a, b and c towards the quadratic functions. So let me give you a very simple overview of how it affects the quadratic function. So first of all, like this, if you have a basic quadratic function, so if you only have x squared, the basic quadratic function looks like this. Okay, this is the basic. Why? Because the a value here, the a value is positive 1. If it's a negative x square, it looks like this. Correct? So this is the basic, the most basic quadratic function. So this is a equals to negative 1. Okay, now the positive and the negative value only tells you whether it's a U-shaped graph or an N-shaped graph. Okay, it only tells you whether it's a U-shape or an N-shape. How do you remember this? Very easy. If it's a positive, remember, positive people are always happy, correct? So you draw a smiley, so you get a U-shaped graph, right? So it's a U here, so it's a U-shaped graph. If it's a negative, so negative people are always very upset, correct? So because they're upset, so you get a sad face. So it's a N-shaped graph. Okay, so this is an easy way for you to remember. So now coming back to this one, if let's say, now I'm going to change the value of a. I want you to see the difference. Okay, if let's say your equation now changes from this to, let's say, fx equals to 10x squared. So now your a value went from positive 1 to positive 10. Now because it's a positive, you know it's a U-shaped graph. Now the 10, what is the 10 going to do with the graph? It's going to make the graph narrower. That's the difference between a positive 1 and a positive 10. Now what about a negative graph? If it's a negative graph, remember the basic is this, correct? Now it's going to change from that to negative 10x squared. Now because it is a negative graph, it's going to be N-shaped, correct? That one we already know, right? That's the basic. Now but because it is negative 10, so it's going to go from the a is going to go from negative 1 to negative 10. So it's also going to make your graph narrower. Okay, it's going to make your graph narrower. The only difference is it's still going to be a negative graph, so it's going to be N-shaped, but it's going to be narrower. So that is the difference in how the a value changes the graph. Now but what if your a value becomes, for example, fx equals to positive 0.1x squared. Now your a value is becoming smaller number, correct? It's smaller. Initially it is a equals to positive 1. Now in this case a is equals to positive 0.1. Now it's becoming smaller. So because it's becoming smaller, now your graph is going to become wider. Sorry, it's going to become wider. Alright, same thing applies to the negative graph. If you get a negative 0.1x squared, now your a value is going to be negative 0.1. So negative is going to be N-shaped, but the 0.1 is smaller than the initial one here, correct? The negative 1, 0.1 is smaller than 1, so it's going to become wider as well. Okay, the width of the graph is going to increase. Okay, it's becoming wider, but the negative will not change. It's still going to be an N-shaped graph. Okay, so that is the difference in how the a value affects the quadratic functions. Now let us look at the b value. So for b value, right, so I already told you the basic. The basic is if it's a x square, it's going to be a U shape. Okay, we have already established that. And if it's a negative a graph, negative x square is going to be a U shape. Correct? We have already established this as the basic. Now what happens if you add b value? So for example, let's say now, okay, this is the basic. Now you have fx equals to x square plus 10x. Okay, now you have your b value is what? B value is positive 10. Now what does the b value does? The b value tells you whether you're going to shift towards the right hand side of the y-axis or the left hand side of the y-axis. That's all it tells you. Okay, so let us recap. Okay, a value tells you the steepness. Okay, is it going to be narrower or is it going to be wider? B value tells you whether you should move towards the right hand side of the y-axis or towards the left hand side of the y-axis. So if it's a U-shaped graph, it's a positive graph, and you see a positive b value, so it means your graph is going to move towards the left. Okay, it's going to move towards the left. So the graph is going to look like something like this. It's going to move towards the left hand side of the y-axis. Now what if it's a negative b value? Now it's still a positive graph, okay, because the a is still positive, but your b value now becomes negative 10. Okay, it's still a positive graph, so it's still going to be a U shape. Okay, but now you have a negative 10, so it's going to move towards the right hand side. So your graph should look something like this. Okay, if it's a negative b value, you move towards the right. If it's a positive b value, it moves towards the left, provided it's a positive a value, right? It's a U-shaped graph. Now if it's a negative graph, okay, let's say, so let's look at the negative side. Okay, if you're confused, don't worry. Okay, I'll recap the whole thing again later. So now if it's a negative graph, now you have fx equals to negative x square plus, again, plus 10x. Now your b value is also positive 10, which is the same as the top here, but the difference is what? The difference is, in this case, your a value is negative graph, correct? And the top here, the a value is positive, correct? So the bottom is negative. Now the negative only tells you N shape, but because it's a negative graph and it's positive 10, you have to do opposite from the top. Okay, so that's why you don't have to remember both, you just have to remember this, and then when you do for the negative graph, you switch it up. Okay, turn it the opposite way. Okay, so let me show you first. So in this case, you have a negative graph, negative a value, right? So it's going to be a negative graph, and because it's a positive b value, so you move towards the right. Okay, you're moving here, so your graph looks like this. Okay, you move towards the right. Okay, for the top question, if it's a positive graph and you get a positive b value, you move towards the left. But if the bottom graph here is a negative graph, okay, because you have negative a and you have a positive b value, you move towards the right. Okay, and vice versa for a negative b value. So if let's say you have negative x square minus 10x, so now your b value is negative 10, but your a value is also negative 1, so it's a negative graph, so it's N shape. Okay, so the top here, when you see negative value, you move towards the right. Now at the bottom here, because it's a negative graph, you have to do the opposite. So if negative 10, you move towards the left. So your graph should look something like this. Okay, this is how your graph should look like. Now I'm just sketching roughly. Okay, please don't mind the horrible drawing, but as long as you understand what I'm trying to say. Okay, so you don't have to remember both, you just have to remember the top one. Just remember, if it's positive a value, that means it's a positive graph, and you have a positive b value, you move towards the left. Okay, if you have a positive graph again but a negative b value, so you move towards the right hand side. Okay, and if it's a negative graph, you do everything the opposite way. That's it. Just remember that way. Okay, now let's look at the c value. How does it affect the function? So again, the basic is what? X squared, correct? So x squared is going to be u-shaped graph. Okay, we have already established that. Now if it's a negative x squared, it's going to be a u-shaped graph. Okay, now how does the c value affect? So again, let us recap. Okay, a tells you the steepness, whether it's going to be narrower or it's going to be wider. Okay, b value tells you whether you should move towards the right hand side of the y-axis or the left hand side of the y-axis. For c value, it tells you whether you're moving up or you're moving down, okay, on the y-axis. Is it going to go up or is it going to go down? Now c value is very easy. Why? Because we all know that the c value here represents the y-intercept, correct? Represents the y-intercept. So let me give you an example. So this is the basic, correct? Now what if you have fx equals to x squared plus 10? So your c value here is plus 10, correct? Now if it's plus 10, your graph is just going to shift upward. Okay, positive 10, so you shift upward, so it's going to look like this. And here now your y-intercept becomes 10, right? This is your y-intercept. Your y-intercept becomes 10. Originally it's plus 0, right? Because there is no c value here. In this equation, there is no c value. So here it touches the 0, the origin. Now because you have plus 10, it means you're moving upward by 10 units. Okay, so you move up. So your y-intercept now becomes 10. Now, but what if it is negative c value? So x squared minus 10. So that means you're moving downward. So it's still a u-shaped graph because it's a positive a, but it's going to move downward. So it's going to look like this. So your y-intercept now is negative 10, right? So that is all the c value is telling you, whether you're moving up or you're moving down of the y-axis. Okay, where is your new y-intercept? Now if it's a negative graph, it's still the same, right? It doesn't change. So this is the original negative a value, so you have an n-shaped graph. Now if you have a fx equals to negative x squared plus 10, same thing. It's just that it's an n value, it's a negative value, so it's an n graph. So now the n graph is going to move upward. So this here is positive 10 because your y-intercept now is positive 10. Okay, what if it's a negative c value? So negative 10. So if it's a negative c value here, that means you're moving the graph downward. So it's going to look like this. So that is all you have to know about the differences, right, between a, b and c and how it affects a quadratic function. Now the second thing we're going to learn for this subtopic is the relationship between general form, vertex form and intercept form, and also how to determine max and minimum point. So let us go step by step. All right, so the first thing is we have thought that the general form of a quadratic function looks like this: fx equals to a x squared plus bx plus c. Now this is one way of writing a quadratic function. So this is what we call as general form. Okay, now this general form can also be converted into other forms. The first one is vertex form. So I'm going to write here vertex form. So how vertex form looks like, it's going to look like this: fx equals to a x minus h square plus k. This is your vertex form. Now the question is, how do you convert? Okay, let us not talk about conversion first. Let's talk about the third form. The third form is what we call as intercept form. Intercept form. So how it looks like, it's like this. It's going to look like x equals to a x minus p x minus q. Okay, this is what we call as intercept form. So the thing about this is you want to identify how do you convert to each other. How do you convert general form to vertex form and vice versa, and how do you convert to intercept form and vice versa. So the easy way, we have actually learned this, right? General form, if you want to convert to vertex form, we learned this in the first subtopic, which is completing the square. And if you want to convert from vertex form to general form, you just have to expand. We call it expansion. Okay, you're just going to expand the bracket and you will automatically get general form. Now, how do you convert general form to intercept form? It is very simple. We have also learned this before. It is called factorization. Now, if you don't understand, you cannot follow me, don't worry, okay? We have more examples coming, alright? So, intercept form, you want to convert back to general form. Same thing, expansion. Okay, so the bridge between vertex form and intercept form is the general form. So you have to do two things. You have to expand again and then do factorization if you want to convert from vertex to intercept, right? And if you want to convert from intercept to vertex form, you have to first expand and then do completing the square. Okay, so for now, this is what you need to know: how to convert general form to vertex form and also general form to intercept form. So let us try a very simple example. Okay, now let's say you're given this equation: fx equals to x squared plus x minus 2. Okay, this is, we all know, is the general form, correct? Now let's say you want to convert this to vertex form. Remember, if you want to convert to vertex form, you have to do completing the square. Okay, so it's going to look like this: fx, this is a vertex form. Okay, so you have to do completing the square. Okay, so fx is going to write here x squared plus x plus, I hope you guys remember. Okay, if you don't remember, please revise the first subtopic. So it's going to be bracket square minus bracket square minus 2. Here is going to be over 2 over 2. So what's the numerator? It's going to be this value here. So it's positive 1. So it's 1 over 2, 1 over 2. Then you're going to factorize this. So it's going to look like this: 1 over 2 square minus 1 over 4 minus 2. Answer is x squared 1 over 2 minus 2 1 over 4. Okay, you can either write like this or you can change it into decimal. Okay, so if you change to decimal, it's going to look like this: 2.25. Okay, so this is the vertex form. Next, if you want to change it to from general to intercept form, so how is it going to look like? So you have to do factorization. So x squared equals to, factorize this, you should get two brackets. One is x minus 1 and x plus 2. Okay, so this is how you factorize. So from here you have already gotten intercept form. Alright, this is intercept form. You have two brackets. Now the main question here is, why do you need all this? Why do you need general form? Why do you need the vertex form? Why do you need intercept form? The whole reason why you need to find this is because you want to find the maximum or minimum point. What is maximum or minimum point? See, when we draw a quadratic function, it's either going to be a U shape or a N shape, correct? If it's a U shape, that means it's a positive graph. If it's an N shape, it's a negative graph. Okay, so A is a negative value. Okay, this A is a positive value. So U shape and N shape. Now, if you have a U-shaped graph, the lowest point here is what we call as the minimum point. Okay, and if you have a negative graph, so the top here, the topmost is what we call as the maximum point. Okay, so that's how exam questions usually ask you. They'll ask you to find, can you find the maximum point or find the minimum point, right? Or sometimes they'll even say find the stationary point, or find the turning point, which makes sense, correct? Because this is the point where the graph turns, and this is the point where the graph turns, so it's known as the turning point. So these are all similar meaning. Okay, either it tells you find the minimum point, or find the maximum point, or find the stationary point or turning point, you know that you are supposed to find either min or max. Okay, these two, it doesn't tell you whether it's a minimum point or maximum point. You have to identify yourself. Okay, so once you have already found the vertex form, okay, this is the vertex form. Once you have already found the vertex form, it becomes very easy to find the either minimum or maximum point. First thing you want to know is what's the a value. In this case, a value is positive, right? You see in front here, right? It's a positive value, positive 1. So you know it's going to be a U shape, right? Positive people are always smiling, so it's a U shape. So you are going to find this point is the minimum point. So what's the minimum point? So the minimum point, you're going to get the x value of the minimum point from here, and the y value of the minimum point from here. Okay, to find the x value, you just have to take x plus 0.5 equals to 0. So x is equals to negative 0.5. So negative 0.5 is your x value of the minimum point. What is your y value? The y value you just have to take as it is. You don't have to change to positive value or whatsoever. Just take the actual number, which is negative 2.25. So your minimum point is going to be negative 0.5, comma, negative 2.25. This is your minimum point. Okay. Now, if it's a how do you know if it's a maximum point? If the a value is a negative value here, if it's a negative value, then this would be your maximum point. Okay. So in the end of the day, it depends on the equation. Alright. Now, next, what if you have intercept form? How do you find your minimum or maximum point? So remember, when you have two brackets like this, you know the x here is equals to 1, the x1 is equals to 1, x2 is equals to negative 2. Now these two represents the roots, correct? So if you have a graph, let's say, so in this case it's going to be a positive a, right? Positive a, because the a here is the a value, so positive a, so it's going to be a u-shaped graph. Okay, so it's a u-shaped graph. Your roots is what? Your roots is 1 and negative 2. So 1 is going to be here, negative 2, let's say, is going to be here. So you're going to have a U shape, correct? So your U shape is going to be like this. Okay, correct? So your minimum point is going to be here, correct? This point here. So how do you find this x value? Let's say this x0. All right, how do you find this value? It's going to be the midpoint between x1 and x2, correct? It's going to be the midpoint. So to find the middle, you're going to take 1 plus negative 2 over 2. That's how you find midpoint. You take the 2x value, add them up, divide by 2. So in this case, you're going to get 1 minus 2 over 2. So negative 1 over 2. So this x value is negative 0.5. Okay, because this is the same meaning as negative 0.5. Okay, so I'm writing negative 0.5. Now you have already found the x value. So how do you find the y value? Just substitute back into your equation. Just substitute back into this equation and you will get your y value. So what are you going to do? It's going to look like this. Equals to negative 0.5 minus 1, negative 0.5 plus 2. So you should get negative 1.5 times positive 1.5. Answer is negative 2.25. So your minimum point is going to be, so your x value is what? Negative 0.5, and your y value is negative 2.25. If you notice, you see both answers are the same, correct? It should be the same because it's from the same equation, right? It's only a different form. Whether you're solving the question using vertex form or you're solving the question using intercept form. Okay, both ways will give you the same answer. Now I'm going to teach you one more shortcut here. The shortcut is you can actually find the minimum or maximum point straight away from using a general form. You don't have to convert. You can do that, okay, but usually they don't really ask this in exam. It's just a way for you to check your answer. Most of the times you'll be using vertex form because they want to see you do the completing the square method. Okay, most of the time that's what you'll be using. But of course, I'm teaching you this new method is for you to check your answers. Okay, so how do you find the minimum or maximum point using just general form? You just have to remember this. A is equals to negative b over 2a. Remember this. Okay, so this will be, oh sorry, this is not a value, this is x value, the x node. Okay, this value here, the x value of the x value of the minimum or maximum point. Okay, so let's take this for example. Negative, the b is what? Positive 1, correct? So negative 1 over 2. A value is also 1, so 1. So you get negative 1 over 2 or negative 0.5, which is the same answer as the bottom two. Okay, so it's actually very fast. So you can use it to check your answer. So once you already found the x value, to find the y value of the minimum or maximum point, you just have to substitute into this equation. So if you substitute, it will look like, okay, I got no space, so I'm going to write here negative 0.5 equals to minus 2. So when you use your calculator, count this, you should get the answer negative 2.25. So this is your y value of the minimum point or the maximum point. So in this case, your stationary point or turning point is going to be this. Okay, so this is a shortcut, right? A shorter way of you to get the minimum or maximum point using the general form. But most of the time you'll be using this, either vertex, sometimes intercept. Most of the time is vertex form, right? So now let us go through some more examples. Express each of the following vertex form into general form and intercept form. So now they gave you here is vertex form. Okay, if you want to change to general form, what do you have to do? This conversion here is expansion. Okay, once you have already converted to general form, you can change to intercept form by doing factorization. Okay, so you have to do two things here. So let's do together. So first thing, you want to change to general form, so you have to expand. So fx equals to, so I'm going to expand the bracket first. So 2x becomes x squared, here it becomes 2x plus 1 minus 18. So you get 2x squared plus 4x plus 2 minus 18. Answer is 2x squared plus 4x minus 16. So this is your general form. Okay, so your this is your first answer. Okay, next you want to change to intercept form. So to do that, you have to factorize. So when you factorize, you should get two brackets. Alright, so before you do that, one thing you have to do is you have to remove, because all of them are a factor of 2, correct? So the first thing you have to do is factorize 2 out of the equation. So you get 2 here, x squared plus 2x minus 8. Okay, now if you do not factorize this, if let's say you just straight away type into your calculator, what happens is it gives you the simplified answer. Okay, so you will have 2 brackets, but you will miss out on the front number here. Okay, that is what the calculator does. It automatically gives you the simplified answer, so you will miss out on the 2 here. If you just straight away type in this equation into your calculator to factorize, you will miss out on the 2 because it will automatically simplify for you. Okay, so the first thing you have to do is remove the 2 because the whole equation can be divided by 2. So here you get 2. What's in the bracket? You should get x minus 2, x plus 4. So this is your answer. So this is the intercept form. Alright, next. Express each of the following in the vertex form where a, h, k are constant. So now they give you this. So this is what? This is general form. So general form, if you want to convert to vertex form, you have to use what? Completing the square. Okay, so that's what you're going to do here. So now you're given fx equals to negative 2x squared plus x plus 6. Now, if you followed me on the first subtopic, I told you to make this become, the a value must always become 1, correct? So to do that, to remove the negative 2 there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide the whole thing by negative 2. Now, that is only for the first subtopic. The reason is because in the first subtopic, we always assume that fx equals to 0. It's a quadratic equation. So you make this equals to 0 and then you divide the whole thing by negative 2. So you get x squared and then you get negative 1 over 2x negative 3 equals 0. So you should get this. But in this case, you have fx and fx is not equals to 0. So you cannot just divide by negative 2 because if you divide here, you get fx over negative 2. Now the equation becomes much more complicated. So we're not going to do that. So what we are going to do is we are going to factorize out. Instead of dividing the negative 2, we are going to factorize the negative 2. So when you factorize, it should look like this. Negative 2, okay, factorize out. So now here becomes x squared, right? So the x squared here is 1, right? That's what you're looking for. Before you do completing the square, the a value here must always be 1. So you factorize the negative 2, you should get x squared minus 1 over 2x minus 3 bracket, close bracket. Okay, so this should be your factorized answer. Now you can start completing the square. Sorry, I just realized I made a mistake. So here is supposed to be negative x, not positive x. So here is negative x. So if here is negative x, here should be positive. Okay, when you factorize, it should be positive. Okay, so now you can start with the completing the square method. So the bracket here, you're going to do completing the square. So x squared, rewrite, plus 1 over 2x plus bracket square minus bracket square minus 3. In the bracket, you're going to have a fraction. Okay, divide by 2. Denominator will be 2. So what about the top number? The numerator is going to be this value here. Okay, the b value of the equation. So it's going to be 1 over 2. 1 over 2. So now you're going to get negative 2. You're going to factorize this part. Okay, for those of you who've forgotten, I hope you go and revise back. Okay, so you get x plus 1 over 4 square. Okay, and then negative 1 over 16 minus 3. So you get negative 2 x plus 1 over 4 square, and then here you should get negative 49 over 16. Now, is this how you're going to leave your answer? No, you cannot leave it like this, because like I said, when you do vertex form, the equation should look like this. It should look like this, but in this case it's not. Why? Because you still have a negative 2 here. So what you're going to do, you're going to expand. So you're going to multiply this into the bracket and this. Okay, so your final answer should look like this: negative 2 x plus 1 over 4 square plus 49 over 8. Okay, so this is your answer. Clear? Because why? You're following the format. So now your a value, based on this equation here, your a value is negative 2, your h value is negative 1 over 4, and your k value is 49 over 8. Right? So you're actually following this format. So that means this is your answer. So based on this, if the question asks you what is the stationary point, so how are you going to find? So very simple. Since it's a negative a value, right? This is a negative a value, right? So you know it's going to be a negative 2, right? So it's going to be a negative graph, N shape, correct? So here is going to be the maximum point, correct? So what is the value? The y value is this. So it's 49 over 8. The x value is, you know, the x plus 1 over 4 equals to 0. So x equals to negative 1 over 4. So your x value is negative 1 over 4. Okay, so this is your maximum value, or maximum point, or you can say it's your stationary point. The diagram on the right shows the graph of quadratic function, and given that negative 2 and 16 is the maximum point of the graph, state the value of AHK. Okay, so now they want you to find the value of A, H and K. So based on this question, right, they already gave you the maximum point. So let me just copy this down. A x plus h square plus k. So this is the vertex form, correct? Now they want you to find AHK. So they gave you the maximum point. Maximum point is negative 2 and 16. So from here, you can already know that k value is 16, right? Because this is the y value of the maximum point. So the y value is also equivalent to k. So k is 16. What about the the x value? So you know that x plus h should be equals to 0. So x equals to negative h. And at the same time, you know that negative h here is also negative 2. Right? That's the x value. So in other words, h value is equals to 2. Correct? So you've already found h value and k value. How do you find a value? Now there is no easy way to find the a value. The only way for you to find is by taking any point on this quadratic function. So in this case, I'm only going to take this point, because that's the only point where I know the x and y value, apart from this. Okay, apart from that. So I'm going to take this, should be 0, 12. Okay, so when I substitute, it should become, fx is 12, correct, equals to a, x value is 0, so 0 plus h value is 2 square plus k is 16. So what do you get? 12 equals to 4a plus 16, correct? So a value should be equals to 12 minus 16 over 4. Answer is negative 1. So your a value should be negative 1. Okay, so if I rewrite this, your equation should look like this. Fx equals to negative x plus h is equals to 2 square plus 16. So this is your vertex form. Okay, so this should be very clear, right? So B, hence express function in general form and intercept form. So it's very similar to what we have done just now. So you already have the vertex form. You want to change to general form, you just have to expand. So question B, so you got this, fx equals to negative x plus 2 square plus 16. So you're going to expand. So negative x square plus 4x plus 4 plus 16. So negative x square minus 4x minus 4 plus 16. Answer is negative x square, negative 4x plus 12. So this is your general form. Next, change it to intercept form. So to change general to intercept, you have to factorize. Now the thing is, here is a negative. Like I said, whenever you have a symbol in front or a value in front, okay, the best thing you have to do is change it to positive before you try to simplify it before you can before you type in a calculator. The reason is because if you do not do that, the calculator is going to simplify for you. Okay, when it simplifies for you, you'll get a different answer. So what you have to do is try to make the negative value into a positive. Okay, whatever it is, if you see a quadratic equation, before you factorize, try to make the negative become a positive. Okay, I mean the a value. Okay, if a value is a negative, try to make it become a positive. And if it's a number, let's say it's negative 2, and you notice that all of these are a factor of 2, so you change it to, you factorize the negative 2 first. Okay, so please bear that in mind. Okay, so in this case, since it's a negative, I'm going to factorize the negative. So it's going to be negative x square plus 4x minus 12. Now you can key in your calculator and then you should get 2 brackets. So your answer should be x minus 2, x plus 6. So this is your intercept form. Okay. Now if you just key in the calculator like this, if you just key in this into your calculator, you notice that you will still get this answer. Correct? And if you wrote this answer without this negative here, your answer will be wrong. Okay? That is why, like I said, before you factorize, please make sure, before you key in your calculator this whole equation, please make sure you factorize the negative out. Because why? If you straight away key in the calculator, it will automatically simplify for you. So in the end, you only get this answer and you will miss out the negative. Then your answer will be incorrect. Okay, so make sure you factorize the negative out first by yourself. Only then you key into your calculator. So like what I did here. Factorize, then key in to your calculator, this part. Then you'll get your correct answer. Clear? Alright.